All right, so the last two Sundays, we've done review work. And this week it's really more about some review, but showing you the consequence of it. Because first story in the Word, of course, is the creation story. You got that, right? We've got that hammered out now. Second one, though, is Adam and Eve. And if you think about it, everything that goes wrong pretty well starts here. And we know the story by now, right? Serpent says to the lady, hey, did God really say don't eat from it? As we just read, yes, he did say don't eat from that. Oh, but, you'll be fine. You're not going to die. It's going to be okay. And so she saw that the tree was good for eat, pleasing to the eyes. And we take the lesson out of the story that what was the one lesson I was pointing to on this story? Come on, you can do it. Senses can deceive you. Excellent, excellent. So, with that in mind, let's think about this. What are the kind of, how does this shake out in your actual life? Why would a person trust their senses? Why would you trust your senses over?
Like go online to things.
Yeah, be physical navigation of the world, yeah. Why would you trust your senses over this story? God says don't do it. Why would you do it? I can think of some reasons, and it's not. And I'll let adults contribute to this. I have some of my ideas. Maybe I haven't been taught the story, right? Many people go through life, they don't show up at church, and they haven't been taught the story, and have not been taught what the story means. So some people just trust their senses because they don't know any better. So there's one reason. Why else might a person trust?
Maybe if it makes them happy and they think that the Lord wants us to be happy, so it must be good, right?
Well, that's, yeah. Chocolate tastes good, so it must be good. The Lord must have given us chocolate for a reason, to make us happy. So we trust our senses because it feels good, right? Is that not what you're going for, kind of? Sure, we'll go with that. All right. I know a guy, this is a true story, I know a guy who, he doesn't believe in God, he believes in nature. He says, oh, well, nature's the real God. And he believes this because, well, when he was a young man, he was in the army. And he saw lots of terrible things happen. He saw people get killed. He lost a finger himself. And so it kind of, he thinks, oh, well, God couldn't let all these terrible things happen. So nature is the true God. And there are plenty of other people who have had bad experiences in life. Something bad happens to them for one reason or another. And they go, oh, God doesn't exist. Right? That's what it's what happens. But the Lord's trying to tell us that, look, even though bad things do happen, it doesn't mean that I don't exist. I'm trying to make good things. That's the kind of the Joseph story. Bad things happen to Joseph. I'm going to bring something good out of it. I'm still here, still working, and I'm going to bring you to a good place. But so this week, I wanted to read you the story about what Swedenborg encounters in the next world with some people who believe in their senses more than they believe in God. In fact, they don't believe in God at all. So I'm going to invite you to sit back, relax, enjoy yourself as I read you this story. This is from True Christian Religion number 77, for those of you who have a memory for these things. He says, early one day, after I had emerged from sleep, but was still not fully awake, I was meditating in the light of the cloudless morning, when through the window I saw something like lightning flashing, and I heard something like the roar of thunder. As I was wondering what was going on, I heard from heaven that there were some not far from me who were debating about God and nature. The flashes of light like lightning and the rumble in the air like thunder were correspondences manifesting the conflict and the clashing over the arguments. One side was for God, the other for nature. This spiritual confrontation arose in the following way. Some devils in hell said to each other, "I wish we could talk to angels from heaven. We could fully and completely demonstrate to them that what they call God, the source of all things, is actually nature. God is only a word, unless it means nature." Because these Satans believed this with all their heart and soul, and because they longed to talk with angels from heaven, they were given permission to come up from the mud and the darkness of hell and speak with two angels who were just then coming down from heaven. The Satans were in the world of spirits, which is halfway between heaven and hell. And once they spotted the angels, the Satans hurried rapidly towards them. With voices full of rage, the Satans began shouting, "Are you the angels of heaven that we are allowed to talk and meet face to face to debate God and nature? They call you wise for acknowledging God, but actually you are complete idiots. Who has seen God? Who understands what God is? Who grasps the idea that God rules and has power over the universe and everything in it? Only lower class type people would acknowledge something they don't see or understand. What is more obvious than the fact that the nature is everything? What eye has seen anything but nature? What ear has heard anything but nature? What nose has smelled anything but nature? What tongue has tasted anything but nature? What hand or body has felt anything but nature? Our physical senses are our witnesses to the truth. We swear on the testimony of our senses. Our breathing is another witness, the respiration that keeps our body alive. What do we breathe but nature? Our heads and yours are in nature. Where does the inflow into the thoughts in our heads come from, if not from nature? If nature were taken away, could you think at all? And many other arguments were made out of these same ingredients, he writes. After the Satans had finished, the angels answered, "You speak that way because you trust your senses alone. All the spirits in hell enmesh their thinking in their physical senses. They cannot lift their minds above their senses. So we forgive you. A life of evil and falsity have closed off the inner realms of your minds so completely that you cannot be lifted above sensory input, unless you happen to be in a state that is remote from the evils in your life and the falsities in your belief. A Satan who hears the truth can in fact understand it as well as an angel can, but the Satan does not retain it because the evil erases truth and introduces falsity. We are aware, though, that you are in a remote state now, and you are able to understand the truth we are telling you. Pay attention, then, to what we are about to say. You used to be in the physical world. You left that place, and now you are in the spiritual world. Before now, did you know anything about life after death? You previously denied that there was a life after death. You put yourselves on par with the animals. Did you know anything before about heaven and hell? Did you know anything about the light and heat in this world? Did you realize that you are now above the realm of nature and no longer in it? This world is spiritual, as is everything in it. Spiritual things are so far beyond physical things that not even the least bit of the nature where you used to be can flow into this world. Because you viewed nature as some god or goddess, you still view the light and heat of this world as nature's light and heat. Although they do not belong to nature at all. In fact, what is light and warm in nature is dark and cold here. Did you know anything before about the sun in this world that provides our light and heat? Were you aware that this sun is pure love, while the sun in the physical world is pure fire? You realize that the sun of pure fire in the physical world was the origin and sustainer of nature. Did you realize that the sun of pure love in heaven is the origin and sustainer of life? Nature then, which you made into a god or a goddess, is clearly dead. If you were granted protection, you could ascend with us into heaven. If we were granted protection, we could descend with you into hell. In heaven, you would see magnificent and dazzling things. In hell, we would see hideous and filthy things. The difference between heaven and hell exists because all who are in heaven worship the Lord, while all who are in hell worship nature. The magnificent and dazzling things in the heavens correspond to feelings for love and for good and for truth. The hideous and filthy things in the hells correspond to feelings of love of evil and false ideas. From all that we have said then, make up your minds now whether God or nature is the all in all. The Satans replied, saying, in our current state, from what we have heard, we are able to conclude that there is a God. But when our enjoyment of evil preoccupies our minds, we see nothing but nature. I could see and hear the two angels and the Satans because they were standing not far from me. To my surprise, I saw them and many who had been famous scholars watching the argument as well. Afterward, the devils, or the Satans, were granted protection and went up with the two angels into heaven. They did indeed see magnificent and dazzling things. Enlightened in the light of heaven there, they acknowledge that there is a God, that nature was created to serve the life that comes from God, and that nature of itself is dead. It activates nothing on its own. Instead, it is activated by life. When they had seen and learned these things, they went back down. And as they went back down, their love for evil returned. It closed off their intellect at the top and opened it up at the bottom. Above it there appeared a dark shadow flashing with hellfire. And the instant they set foot on the ground, it opened up and opened up underneath them, and they fell back down to their own people. The end. So, the reason I read you this long story is, we talk about our senses deceiving us. And it's one thing to say, hey, don't do this, but the point of the story is it shows you what happens when you choose to follow your senses. I mean, for one, these beings were Satan's. They were going to end up spending the rest of their eternity in hell. Well, you don't want that. That's no good. So it's kind of showing you the consequence of trusting your senses when it comes to spiritual things. Zach says, well, we follow your senses so you can not bump into things. Well, sure. Your senses are useful for navigating this world. If I didn't have my senses, I wouldn't be able to drive and type and do all sorts of things. So it's not like your senses are worthless. God gave them to you for a reason. But he is saying, hey, look, don't always trust your senses over what the Lord tells you. If the Word tells you, hey, don't do that, but your senses says, oh, that feels like that'd be a lot of fun. Listen to this. I mean, look, I can tell you from experience, when I was not that much older than you boys, I found it was fun to steal things. Yeah, you've had that experience too, right? People don't steal things because it's boring. There's a thrill in it. And that's why these 10 Commandments exist, because there's a thrill in doing some of these things. So you go, oh wait, I enjoyed stealing that candy bar. Oh, that was kind of fun and exciting. But the Lord's saying, don't do it. Don't trust that sense. Because where's it going to lead you? It's going to lead you to a bad place. So, one of the things I did for you boys today, I have this, which to the astute observer is a Fuji Xerox drum cartridge box that I have divided into thirds. Yeah? Impressed?
No.
No. That's because you haven't seen my doors. See? It has doors that open up on each of these things. Right? Doors. They're like one-way gates, right, Zach? And I got my handy-dandy garage light. You know, how are doors? The doors are mostly closed. And how much light is getting to the bottom? Not a whole lot. There's a little bit of light there. Now, obviously, as you open up the doors, the more light gets in. You can open up the top, but you got to get all three of them open to really get light in there. Huh? You got to. That's better. So, if this is a picture of your mind, or a picture of my mind, you know, on the lower level you might find things like this. And as I start focusing on things like that, well, these kind of things start to close. And that's what we heard in that story. The guys, these Satans, are focusing on their senses. And this is all there is. All this stuff starts to close up. The angel said, you have closed the interiors of your mind. Now think about this. You guys have experienced this. This is not a phenomenon that's reserved just for Satans in hell. We all have tastes of this. Imagine this. You're there in your favorite chair, and you've got your favorite screen in front of you, and you're playing your favorite game. You're hopping or shooting or doing whatever it is you're doing in that game, and your mom says, Dylan, it's time to do your homework. Did Dylan actually hear that happen? Nope. Matthew, have you done your homework? Matthew, it's dinner time. Did Matthew hear that? No. Because he's so focused on this part of his mind. He's so focused that those higher levels have been shut. I didn't hear you, Mom. And even if he did, he closed that really tight, saying, no, I don't hear that. We have other items. You know, if we have a copy of the Word, you know, where does the Word go in our mind? Well, you know, think about it. Where would you put the Word? Top, middle, bottom? What do you got? Middle? Yeah. Well, you can't go wrong with middle. But think about it like this. This is a book, right? Where does the book go? Yeah? Yeah. It's the part of the five senses. It's part of this world. The book itself might go here. But this idea that our senses deceive us, this is an idea, that's probably going to be middle or maybe even top level. So the ideas in our minds are these top things. And those ideas are real. They're not fake. They're not imaginary. And if you have an idea like, oh, my senses can deceive me, well, that's an idea from the Lord. And so that lightens up everything else in this level. You can't probably see it too well back there, but this whole top level is pretty well lit up right now. And as that idea, our senses deceive us, comes through, and we say, oh, you know what? I have this idea that I might like that candy bar at the 7-Eleven. I bet I can get that and get out the door and that guy won't even notice. I mean, God, you know what? The Lord says, 10 Commandments, I shouldn't do that. And it's like, oh, the door is open and it makes light in the rest of our mind. And as that opens up, this opens up. And guess what? We find the word. Oh yeah, that's right. 10 Commandments, don't do that. So the point of it is that there's consequences to believing and following these stories. You know, it's not just a simple don't trust your senses. It's don't trust your senses because, well, you're going to close up parts of your mind that are useful. You're going to end up taking yourself to a place that you don't really want to be. And just so you know, this illustration I give you, this is basically your Noah's Ark story. All right, God brings in all these animals, says the animals are the good things, right? There's a flood coming, save all the good things in your life. And what's this ark? 1, 2, 3 levels. 1, 2, 3 levels. What does the ark have on the top? It has a window for the light to come in. That's what this story is. This ark is a picture of your mind. That's what this is. And those animals are arranged and kept in order to help keep the good parts that are in your life. That's what that story is a lot about, is saving the good. And it's about your mind, 3 levels. So that's what I want you to see, is that there are consequences for not doing what the Lord says, and that we should be aware of it. And you know, you don't want to follow those paths of those Satans, because they ended up going to a place where they had closed things up so shut they weren't able to open them up anymore. Amen.